Bonjour à toutes et tous, vous écoutez First Print, votre podcast comics préféré pour une nouvelle émission du format SuperFriends et on est trop content de vous présenter un numéro assez exceptionnel puisque on va accueillir dans cet épisode Stepan Shmytinsky qui est éditeur de comics, oui mais pas dans n'importe quel pays, en Russie. Donc on va pouvoir discuter avec lui de son parcours professionnel et surtout de toutes les différences qu'il existe dans ce lointain pays, dans les modes de publication, dans la façon dont l'import et l'export de bande dessinée se fait, notamment parce que Stepan a aussi une carrière très longue et très diversifiée, comme vous allez le comprendre dans cette interview qui sera évidemment réalisée entièrement en anglais. Le générique se lance et puis je vous retrouve tout de suite en compagnie de Stepan. So that was my short introduction in French. Bonjour Stepan.
Bonjour.
This is the only word that you know in French for now, but maybe in a few years we'll do another interview completely in French because you are learning French.
Yes, I'm trying my best to do this. But I know, j'aime le lire beaucoup.
Voilà. This is good. This is a good start. So we're going to do an interview, a podcast about your work and also about the publishing of comics in Russia. But maybe just before we start the interview, we do agree that you're not a soldier of the Putin government and you're trying to do a Russia interference in our podcast.
Sure. Actually, that's the reason one of the reasons why I'm in France right now. It's because of the war, because of, the whole geopolitical situation. My parents and my friends and even my publishing house, it's still in Russia. So, for sure, I'm not a soldier. Actually, I'm a soldier of reserve, but
but you flew out
yes,
of the country.
That was one of the reasons why I left Russia. It's because I used to be a soldier of reserve, and in times of real trouble, I could be drafted or whatever. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here.
Yeah, and I totally understand that you would prefer to publish books instead of just try to do a war. But, so that's not the real subject. Here, how would you introduce yourself and how you came to work into the comics field?
Okay, so usually at my business card, I made this kind of new word. I call myself multitask comic book professional because I'm working in comic books for 13 years already. And for Russia, it's long term. So I started as a comic book shop assistant. But at that time, back in 2012, we had a really, really, really small publishing house. And this publishing house was a part of the comic book store. And our licenses were really random. For example, the first books that I'm working as a redesigner, because, in Russia, we need to translate, but also we need to translate all the signs in Cyrillics. So we can't use just this boom, scratch, or whatever in the original lettering. We need to redraw everything. So one of my first book, for example, was Lost at Sea by Brian Lee O'Malley.
Okay, yeah.
And but at that time, our other books was, for example, Che Guevara by Breccia, Arrival by Sean Tan, Rebbe's Cat by John Sfar. It was really, really random, the stuff that our boss found out. But when I came, it was 2012, as I told. Slowly, we started to look at more mainstream stuff. And I think it was at 2013, we literally collect all the change from our pockets to buy our first huge license. And it was Adventure Time from Turner. And that time, you remember, I don't know how it was in France, but in Russia, Adventure Time cartoons was super, super popular. Of course, it was a pirate translations over the internet, but we did it officially. We bought this license and it was some kind of our rocket to success. So then I think next year, Marvel came to us. We came to Marvel. And before this, I became like a chief editor of the whole Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtle series. And then it became like a snowball. So as I told you, if at the beginning I was just redesigning, selling books, sometimes translating a little, but then it was more like managing, trying to, find the best contracts. I became a license manager and whatever. So that's how I came to the whole thing. It was also Walking Dead, I don't know, Transformers, whatever you could imagine, like Spider-Man, everything.
Okay, so I've got a few more questions just regarding what you just said. For example, for starters, so you worked in a comic shop, in a comic store. How many are there comic shops in Russia? Is it easy to find comics if you're not living, for example, in St. Petersburg or in Moscow?
So right now, we're living in this age of, digital online ebook stores. So we have our own Amazon that calls actually Ozon. And so it's pretty easy. But at that time, back in 2012, there were just a few.
And before. So.
Yeah, and before, it was just a few. So I'm from St. Petersburg, so it's like the second biggest city, cultural capital of Russia. And at that time in 2012, it was only one comic book store here, and also just one table on like a book market. But then I think the golden age of Russian comic book publishing, it was 2016, 2017, where a lot of comic book stores appears all around Russia. And I think it was like 600 or something like this of them. Right now, one of my friends, he is the only one Russian comic book journalist. And just recently, a few months ago, he made this, he checked how many of them still working. And I think numbers are like 200, something like this. So, and it's like really small stores. Mostly they selling not comic books, but mangas with a print of superheroes, or mostly manga. So yeah, that's how it works like right now. But as I told, back in 2012, it was a few, and it called 28, which translate like 28. The main idea was to make it like in Soviet Union, where all the stores have its own number, so it was like 28th. Whatever. And because it was 2012, we were mostly selling English original books. Okay. So we literally ordered it from Amazon because nobody knows how to use it in Russia in 2012. Bring it to our store, reselling them.
So you were not using like a professional distribution system?
Oh, it's a funny story because when I came to the company, I'm signed a contract with Diamond, and I tried, but it was because it's Russia and it's a very hard bureaucratical system. So yeah, to bring it all the time to Russia officially, it was just so many pain in the ass. So and it cost a lot. It costs a lot because Russia, it's for a lot of delivery services, it's like a third world, and so we did this type of thing. We ordered to Finland. Then, because St. Petersburg is just like 300-400 kilometers from Helsinki, then we took a big van, came to Finland, collecting our books, and then crossing borders, telling to custom clearance officer that it's our collection, and then bring it to Russia. So it was some kind of a black market books at that time, but that it is.
No, but that's interesting because I guess that even before the 2022 war, yes, it was still maybe difficult to have a business in the comics industry in Russia, because especially if you want to import comics from the United States or from other countries in the European Union, and even from France. I don't know if you're aware, after you started just working on licenses like TMNT and stuff like that, were you also interested in doing French comics and.
So actually, as I told you, we already published a few works by French artists like Jean Sfar, Rebesquet, for example, or for example, Marc-Antoine Mathieu. 3 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is very experimental and okay.
It was very experimental, but so we were. Our name was and still is Comme il faut.
Yeah,
which is the French word, by the way.
This is very funny, actually. Yeah,
but we were some kind of a mainstream publisher. But there were. And there still is another publisher called Boom Kniga, with my friend Dima Yakovlev, who used to be this, fine art comic book publisher, and he published a lot of French artists like Marjan Satrapi, like Marc-Antoine Mathieu, and even, I don't know, a lot.
You don't have to say it.
Yeah.
To say
he made a lot of cultural projects based on the money from some embassies, from some cultural programs and whatever. So actually he bring Marc-Antoine Mathieu, and because we were like friends publishers, we make this book together. So yeah, then I remember back in 2017 we did some of Panaccione books, like maybe I say the Wilfred Lupano.
Yes, okay.
And Panaccione, the artist who made with him Ocean of Love, like Ocean d'Amour, something like this. Anyway, some silent book, the French one.
I can search for it because I'm not an expert on all the French comics because I'm specialized in American comics.
But it was, as I told, pretty random stuff that we were published. So yeah, and telling you truth. Speaking about license that we bought, 2014, and some of geopolitical things happens, like the Crimea crisis, when the Russian ruble exchange rate, it fell down really bad. So for us, of course, it was like a huge quest to survive it. But still, at some point, for us, it became more logical to buy licenses and to translate them and to print them in Russia, and stop just bringing books from Finland, because, you need to pay currency to do this, and bringing the whole production to Russia, it was a good idea. So, yeah.
So was it hard to make contact with American publishers?
Actually, no, never. As I remember, back in 2012, 2013, and still till the 2022, it was pretty easy. Some of the companies, they already had, like agents in Russia who helped them to, manage all the licenses and whatever. For example, Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles. I think the company called Umne Masha, like Clever Masha, who also, do you know this stupid children cartoon called Masha and the Bear? Masha and the Bear, it's like super popular all around the world, and it's just a Russian, thing.
Okay, I don't know that.
Yeah. Believe me,
I'm too old.
Super popular. Okay. And those guys were really good in holding licenses. So Nickelodeon and Viacom using their help to sell license to Russians. So that's how we bought Ninja Turtles, for example. But Marvel was always working with Panini, and it was pretty easy to work with them. Some of them working directly, like Dark Horse, for example. So yeah, it was pretty easy during that time.
But because Panini was also working with Russia then?
Yes. Of course, they used to work. In this bright past world, every country was, like just in the brotherhood or something like this. It was really easy to sign a contract, to buy a license, to translate it, even to invite an artist to Russia. Yeah. So
because that's also one of the things you've been doing also like conventions or organizing like events about comics culture.
So we start for the small events called the biggest comic store in the city, something like this. But then it became the thing called Micro Comic Con. And it was our local thing. Each season we made it. And also in Moscow, there was Comic-Con Moscow, which actually was just a small part of another convention based on video games like YCon. But anyway, we started to bring afters to those events. And so our first guest was Simon Hanselman, somehow at the time when he used to live in Australia. Then Chip Zdarsky was our guest because we were a publisher of Govard the Duck. I think that was the main thing that we published at that time by him. And then we started to organize our own festival called Big Festival in St. Petersburg, inviting by us again, like important animators, like I don't know, for example, Patrick McHale, the guy who made Over the Garden Wall cartoon, Alex Hirsch, the Gravity Falls guy, or Mateusz Santaloku, who is the main artist of. Oh, and actually,
we know him well in France, Mateusz.
Yeah, and actually, Kevin Eastman was our guest at some point.
He's just a small guy, like
yeah.
He did quite a few things a few years ago.
He was the second one, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle guys in Russia, so that's why I forgot about him a little. So it was bright times. It was really cool, and our festivals, even Americans. They usually thought that Comic-Con is mostly about selling toys and merch and whatever. The same thing for Russian Comic-Con. It's mostly about video games, as I told you, and just selling. But the things that we did in St. Petersburg, it was mostly about, communication with the artists, to see how the foreign professionals works, to speak with them, have some talks and whatever. And of course, I also want to remind about this guy, Dima Yakovlev, that I told you, the Boom Kniga. Several years before, he started even a better thing. It was like Russian Angulem called Boomfest. It was in St. Petersburg with all these exhibitions during September, with all those people that came from abroad. And but it was mostly about art of comic books, not about entertainment mainstream stuff.
If I understand as well, I guess that like mostly the events about comics are in St. Petersburg, which you call the cultural capital of Russia, and not so much in Moscow. And maybe because also it's too far to go to Moscow compared to St. Petersburg.
Well, it used to be always very much cheaper to go to Moscow because it's a capital. It have a lot of flights. It have free airports.
Yeah, sure.
And so on. But Moscow, it's always about money. And St. Petersburg, it's always about culture, and soul and spirit and whatever. So there used to be a lot of like big book publishing houses who tried to publish books without knowing what they're doing. And in St. Petersburg, we were about know what they're doing and doing the best. But actually, several years before COVID happens, the big publisher called Exmo, it's like Hachette for Russia. It's a monopolist, the huge company. They bought Comme il faut, the publishing house when I used to work. At that time, I was already fired from it and had my own independent small company, but still. So they bought it. Then Comme il faut, being a part of Exmo, bought me with this independent publisher that I used to be. And right now, still Moscow, it's about money, but, it's a lot of smaller publishing houses who were bought by Moscow companies working for Moscow. And in St. Petersburg, just a few small publishing houses left. So
Okay, so right now you are part of the Exmo group, technically.
yes, technically I'm a part of Exmo group.
But are you separated still from Comilfo, or are you an imprint of Comilfo?
Long story short, I will try. So back in 2016, I was fired from my Comilfo job because of some personal stuff with another coworker, whatever. But some really nice and clever guys helped me to find another job. Small publishing house called Confederation. When I became an editor-in-chief, just from the slice. And this comic book publishing house was based on indie, underground stuff, and about Russian own talents. So that's how I became publishing Prison Pit by Johnny Ryan, Fanta Bukovsky, but most of the Fantagraphics, John Quarterly stuff and whatever. And of course, a lot of Russian artists. And that's actually how I helped to the Russian own comic book culture a lot. But then in 2019, I was really stressed. It was a one-man publishing company, and I was really stressed and burnout and whatever. So when
we have also this kind of publisher here in France. The one-man army, but it can only last till you have the energy to do it.
Yes. So when I turned 30, my former boss came and told that, hey, maybe you want us to buy you, and I was like, whatever, please shut me. So I became an imprint of the comic book department of Exmo, and it lasted for several years. But then COVID started, and it became, of course, much more harder to work with as a comic book publisher. I think it hits the whole market all over the world, but especially independent comic books in Russia were, in trouble. Because, for example, my type of business, my, way of business was to publish 1,000 books by Russian author for some event. And 1,000, it's a lot for Russia. I mean, like the usual print run of Spider-Man trade paperback was around 3,000, which is like not really a lot for the country with 145 million people.
Yeah, and I mean like 3,000. It's the print run, so it's not especially the books that are sold. It's only the one that are printed.
Yeah. So, and my type of doing business was to publish like 1,000 of some local artist for some event. Then, because it's event that he's doing signings and whatever, sell, like 300 copies. And then it's easy to solve the rest. But when the COVID started, there was no any events anymore.
No signings.
Yes, no signings, whatever. So and that's actually the point where being a part of the huge monopolistic was a good thing. So for 2 years we were surviving, but then the war started, and when the war started, it became harder and harder with the freedom of speech, for example. And independent underground books, they're mostly about freedom of speech. So at some point we just closed the whole brand called Confederation. I think they closed it as soon as I left Russia and came to Europe. So, but Comilfo, right now it's still working, and right now I'm some kind of editor-in-chief of the whole translated comic book department of this thing, Comilfo of Exmo.
Okay, so you mentioned before we started recording that publishing comics in Russia is quite different than what we know in France or in Europe. Can you explain what are the differences? How does it work?
First of all, it's the comic books in Russia are totally not popular at all. We don't have this huge culture, even comparing to, for example, former Yugoslavia countries, because here they have this really deep culture of fumetti and whatever. In Russia, comic books were never popular. I mean, of course, our dads and mothers, they read comic books, but it was never called like comic books. It was like веселые картинки, like funny pictures in some children magazines or whatever. And I know the reasons why, because I also have some lectures about the history of Russian comic book, like proto comic books, but next time, maybe. Anyway, so comic books were never popular in Russia. I think the first steps of trying to publish comic books for a huge auditory was in 90s, after the Soviet Union collapsed and after the falling of Iron Curtain and whatever. And I remember I was a child in this time, and it was, just a random famous franchises like Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, and Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles.
Already.
Yeah, already. ElfQuest, by the way.
Okay.
And it was really, really interesting why someone tried to bring these comic books to Russia. And thank you if you're listening to us, because it was my first, sexual thing about ElfQuest when I was just like 8 years old or something like this. Anyway, but then there was another economical crisis, and so at that time when I came to the comic book publishing, it's beginning of 2010s, so it was just a small publishers trying to do some really indie stuff and on their own. There was no any big publishers at all. Sometimes big publishers like Azbuka or Amphora, they're trying to, suddenly buy a license because the movie appears or something like this. Like Watchmen, for example, that how Watchmen 300s by Frank Miller or Sin City appears. But as I heard, sales were always pretty bad because nobody cares about them.
Even for because these are not small comic books. Like Watchmen and everything Frank Miller has done is considered to be a chef-d'œuvre in every country in the world. But but not every country, but in any like European / American societies, we all love Frank Miller and Watchmen. So it's really interesting that even with the movie that were out, it's not something that appeals to the Russian people. Okay.
So the sales were like pretty okay, I think, for them. At that time, there were like few, like a small publisher who trying to make some Marvel stuff using single issues, which was really strange, but they did several books. And they actually were one of the reasons why I came into this business, because there were several books. I read them all and I want to do the same thing too. But then, as I told you, because of Marvel movies, it became more and more popular. And of course, I think still our main bestseller used to be Deadpool Kills Marvel Universe.
Okay.
And comparing to all the other books that for like, as I told, 3000s, I think during all the time of existence of our publishing house, we sold like 90,000 of Deadpool, something like that, or maybe 60. I don't remember the right number, but
a lot compared to the usual.
Lot, yeah. And there's a lot of examples like this. I think like Rick and Morty, maybe. And that's all.
But just when you were publishing these books, how did you choose the one that you were going to publish in Russian? Because why did you choose especially that Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe story? Because there are several other Deadpool books and even several other Marvel books. And we know that Spider-Man is quite popular, the Avengers, the X-Men. So why? Yeah, how did you feel that the Russian readers would be more interested in just a guy that kills the Marvel Universe?
So that's funny because I think Spider-Man was never so popular as Deadpool in Russia.
Yeah, sure.
And
it's just a cultural thing. I don't know.
Yeah. So the thing is,
you can't explain it rationally.
I think I can explain it. I mean, of course, people like me, I remember Spider-Man at my childhood because we didn't have any comic books, but we had cartoons 1994.
And maybe toys also or stuff like that. I don't know.
We had a few, but yeah. Because we were this really cultural publishing house, we tried to do, the books that we enjoyed the best.
Okay.
And, as it's usually a good way of doing your business is to publish 2 books for audience and 1 book to yourself. So our first titles that we bought from Marvel, and it was the idea of my former boss and my other colleague. So our first 3 books that we published was Deadpool Kills Marvel Universe, then Hawkeye by Matt Fraction,
and David Aja,
and Daredevil by Mark Waid.
Okay.
So that was our first 3 steps in publishing of Marvel. Then, of course, we started to buy more Spider-Man and then. But those 3 was our first. And I think also there's just random stuff that we really enjoyed, like, like Falls of Spider-Man and whatever. So that was our first ones. Some of them actually were already published a long time ago, but this guy, some of classical, classical scripts, classical books were published, like, for example, Secret Invasion, but they were just, randomly published and before the whole comic book industry appears.
Not even Civil War?
Civil War was published,
I guess,
but as I told, it was just published by some publisher who called actually comics. It really was the name of this comic book publishing, Comic Books Limited, something like this. But it appears before the whole culture appears.
Yeah.
So that's why, I think I bought all those books on the sale at some, first Amazon stuff for less than €1 or something like this.
But these were books that were officially published.
Yeah, they were officially published. And I heard the story from the guys who used to work on them that, for example, to buy some of Spider-Man stories, they also need to buy Fantastic Four, because it was important step for the Marvel and Panini in Russia to also have Fantastic Four be published. But of course, nobody cares about Fantastic Four in Russia. So that's the thing.
Yeah, and especially with their history, with the space race. Because, the Fantastic Four, their origins is linked also to the space race that Russia and United States were going for back in the days. So we were speaking about the differences. So you told me just before that, okay, so comic books were not as popular as they can be elsewhere. So then,
that's the question is mostly about publishing foreign translated licenses or the whole thing?
First foreign licenses, and then we are also start by the...
So, as I told you, there is just a few comic book stores. So, and if in St. Petersburg and in Moscow, there is, those 2 really cool major comic book store. When you came to them, there is a assistance that could provide you in this world of comic books and whatever. In all the other towns of Russia, and Russia is huge, there is no such thing as a good comic book assistants who could help you. So the only thing that left to you is to use internet and whatever. And to tell you truth, we don't even... I think we still don't even know how to sell and to promote our comic books, because only right now we're doing our first steps, because if we will not invent the way to advertise them, we will, just close our business. But I remember in the past, we just, have several like a local Facebook, Russian Facebook called VK, Vkontakte, only group on VK when we're writing about a book that we just published it, and that's all. There is nothing else to do. So there was no any communities, and all we did is just, coming to some events, trying to sell that. So there was no any industry from the big letter of I. That's the thing. Also, as I told you, there used to be a Comic-Con, but it appears, I think, first time Comic-Con appears. It was like 2016 or something like this, 2015. But as I told, it was just a small part of
video game and stuff. Yeah.
And for example, there used to be another comic book festival called Комиссия in Moscow, but it was based not on selling books or selling translated books on whatever. It was just about, other artists from Russia meet other artists from Russia. For example, and that's strange to hear, but for example, Brian Bolland once was a guest on this festival, but none of his books were ever published in Russia at that time. So he just came, said like, hello, maybe have some talks, and then, came back to whatever.
Even now the Killing Joke.
No. Right now, Killing Joke is published. Okay. And that's actually a funny story about DC in Russia.
Yeah, because we spoke mainly about Marvel, but there's also DC.
Yeah. So we used to be a publisher of Marvel, but there was our nemesis, who were a publisher of DC. And it was a completely different way of doing business with Marvel and with DC, because Marvel were giving their licenses to everyone. Even if you're a small publisher, just appeared, and can buy, like 3 single issues, they're okay with this. So I think actually that's one of the reasons why at some point Marvel collapsed in Russia, because there were just too many stuff appears by, I think it was like 11 small publishers that trying to publish everything, like Full Killer, I don't know, Spider-Gwen, what else?
Spider-Gwen was quite popular, but Full Killer not so much. But it means that, you don't have them, because in France, there's only one publisher, it's Panini, that has the licensing rights of Marvel in maybe almost all the European countries, and even in Brazil and other countries. But in Russia, so you could just, if I wanted to just do like one Spider-Man book, I could just try to contact Marvel and say, hey, I want to do this Spider-Man series. Can I buy it?
It worked like this before the war started.
Before, sure. But,
and it was like really funny, because at first they tried to keep, at least, teams are with one publisher, Spider-Man, Deadpool, Daredevil is with the other publisher, Thor is with the other. But then, smaller publishers, they're trying to find, like a hole to do something. For example, there was a publisher who bought Marvel original novels, original graphic novels. So with Spider-Man, with Silver Surfer in there and whatever. And we were like, what? And, they told us that, but it's original novels. It's not the same thing as a Spider-Man. Okay. Yeah. At some point, another publisher who used to publish the Ultimate Universe, they started to publish the Ultimate Spider, and we were like, but we were publisher, but it's another thing.
It's not the same version.
Yeah, and it was like the Wild West at some point. For example, my former boss, he was buying licenses, just not let other publisher to buy this.
But was he publishing them? Or was it just buying them?
No, we published everything.
No, okay, so you buy.
Yeah. But DC, they for a long time, they had only one partner called Azbuka, and I was like so disagree with their like politics of doing their business, because we like my own idea, and my friends and my former colleagues were agree with me that Russia don't have comic book culture. So to make it, we need to develop it, and to develop it, we need to make comic books cheap. So, just a random reader who came into comic book store to buy another, like novel by some, I don't know, Tolkien or something like this, he will see the comic books and will think that, okay, maybe I could try. And at that point, for example, books in Russia, of course, they cost much cheaper than in Europe, even now with all the sanctions and whatever. And for example, for 1,000 rubles, which is right now is just 10 euros, back in those times, you could buy 3 trade paperbacks.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
I think at that time it was a little bit, so the exchange rate was different, but it's still like 15 euros cost you like 3 books.
Yeah. And then it's not even one book nowadays in France.
But so because my point of view was that people could need to have a possibility to risk their money. So if you will buy Deadpool kills Marvel Universe, Hawkeye, and Daredevil, even if you don't like the first one, maybe the second one will touch your heart. Yeah, and our former, how you call this, former nemesis, yeah, they are trying to do like a super very, very, very expensive editions, like a collector ones, with a large size, with a dust cover, with hardcover, of course, with the bonus materials. So even like Killing Joke, it was published with all the bonus material scripts and layouts, whatever, that made those books, of course, much more expensive. And of course, they took the most popular characters like Batman and Superman and whatever. And for me, it was, of course, they had a lot of sales because people like Batman somehow. I don't understand it, but still.
Yeah, really?
I don't like Batman.
What?
Because I'm leftish.
Yeah, but
okay, stories are fine, and artwork is cool, but still,
you don't like the fact that a rich guy would just dress up like a bat to knock off poor people.
You know, actually,
but that's a way of seeing Batman. That's quite common. Actually, like is Batman far right? Yeah. Of course he is.
As told you, I will tell you.
But well, yeah.
Sorry, yes, some. Off top, but do you remember I told you that comic books were never called comic books in Russia?
Yeah.
There is a reason. And one of the reasons is Batman and Superman. So, right after the war, I think it was late 40s, beginning of 50s, one of the Russian, the most famous children writer, he came to United States, like an, experience exchange program, to see what's happening in the United States. And you remember it was right before the comic code appears. And there was a lot of, crime comic books, a lot of horror comic books and whatever. So when this old Soviet guy came to United States and saw this,
he was horrified.
Yes, he was horrified. So he came back to Russia and wrote a huge article that called, I don't remember the literal translation, but how comic books, wrecked children minds of American people, of American children.
So you got your own Dr. Frederick Wertham.
Yeah. Okay. So, and he writes a huge thing that the whole idea of the American comic books is that the man cannot do, like the society cannot do anything with a crime, and the only thing that could help it's the space guy or some rich guy or whatever. So police will never help you, your friends, your neighbors will never help you, and all this stuff. And he was the Soviet Union guy, the guy who thought that the community could solve everything. So for him it was really just a stupid thing. And that's funny because, as I remember in the United States, the main reason of the parents were not glad about this crime comic books. They told that it's a communist propaganda also. Something like this. Yeah. It's really funny. So anyway, let's come back to our
but you were just speaking about the DC publishing, so it's more expensive. They were more in the collector.
Yeah.
But also bear in mind that if you don't have any audience, you don't have any collectors. But there were still enough collectors to make a living for them.
Something like that. So it's another. I'm not sure if you have the thing in France, but in Russia it's always the big confrontation between the people who like hardcovers and the people who like soft covers.
Yeah, we've got that also.
Yeah, but you have both editions here. As I know.
Not so much because some publishers, for instance, like for just so you know, like 10 years ago. A little bit more than 10 years ago, like in 2012. So there's the new publisher called Urban Comics that just bought the license of DC Comics. And they started by publishing all the DC books in hardcover because at that time it was it was quite cheap, so that you could sell it also at a fair price. Now it's way more expensive today. But before that, the softcover was the main, like the main kind of books. And so in a few years, after Urban got on the market, every other publisher stopped doing the softcover books. Mm-hmm. And now the hardcover is the main. And we are getting back to the soft covers because it's cheaper in the library. Mm-hmm. So so we have these debates amongst the readers, like, I prefer hardcover because it's more like, it bears across the time. You don't have scars and marks, and yet the other are like, but I prefer the soft cover because it's cheaper. You can have more for the same price. So yeah, actually, it's an ongoing war in every country, I guess.
I know what you're talking about because yesterday I've been to Pum Pum.
Yeah, sure.
And I saw the Preacher in the soft cover, the smaller.
Yeah, but it's in the pocket format. It's also
in 10 euros, and it's so good. Actually, I'm the trade paperback lover, so
yeah, but because we don't have so you either have like the big hardcover edition for $30 or the short softcover version, but you could have the normal sized softcover edition also. Yeah. So. But but
so, and that was the thing. But in Russian industry, it means you have only trade paperbacks, or only hardcovers. And for a long time in Russian publishing, it was Marvel's in trade paperback and DC in hardcovers. So that's how it used to work for a long of time. Of course, then right now we could call it, full 2019s. Some that, of course, we started to make some collector stuff too. Like we launched our own golden collection of Marvel, like reprinting the old classical stuff that was published way before we started to publish Marvel, like Civil War and all the stuff.
But is there a printing industry in Russia, or were you printing the books abroad and then importing them?
Printing everything in Russia. Okay. Because Russia is a huge country with a lot of trees, and our printing company were always pretty good. I mean, of course, not a lot of them have, some special features, like, for example, making a hole in your hardcover book, to make it more stylish, or sometimes it will be hard to find some, colorful foil or whatever. But it used to be okay. Right now, it became much more expensive because of sanctions. And, for us, it was a surprise. Because in the first days of the war, when a lot of foreign companies starting to stop working with Russia again and again and again, and it appears that the chemicals that are using to make paper white, they are imported from Finland. And at the first days of the war, suddenly white paper in Russia became so expensive that we still have some kind of eco-friendly, brown paper for your printer and whatever. So yeah, that's the problems that they have. And the thing is that actually Russia is full of bureaucracy. So, I mean, of course, it could be cheaper to print something in China in a larger print runs, but me and my colleagues, we never even tried to do this because it's just too many, headache.
Yeah, and even so, St. Petersburg and China, it's quite a long, very long way.
They have, as I know, like big publishers, like even Exmo right now, they have, channels to do this. And right now, Russia and China are better friends than they've ever been. But still, I mean, it's still too much of paperwork. So, and as a Russian, I hate paperworks because I saw it from my childhood.
Yeah.
Oh, and the last thing, speaking about childhood and about, heritage, about hardcovers and softcovers. So during the Soviet Union, I think that when this war between formats started, because of course a lot of books were published in Russia, like Hemingway, Remark, and everyone, and they all were published in like million copies, and they were like in hardcovers. I have this heritage from my granddad, the full adventures, all in hardcover, the series that have like 100 books. But at the same time, because there was a hard censorship, all of the underground prohibited writers like Solzhenitsyn, like Davlatov, and the guys who were against Soviet Union, but they used to work in Soviet Union. They were printed, like self-made printed, and of course those self-made printer stuff, they were in trade paperbacks.
Yeah.
So after the fall of Soviet Union, a lot of Russians still have this idea that if you want to have something official and serious collection, it must be in hardcover, and a soft cover it's something underground.
Yeah. So either underground, either for the poor. Okay, no, it's really interesting. So getting back on the tracks also, but I love doing these detours.
Yeah, sorry, it's all
it's
ADHD.
No, and it's all right, because it's also the aim of this podcast is not to be like a formal interview, like with just question answer. So, but if I am getting back to the publishing of licensed comic books, so how does it work? Is it like, because in France you just have like to buy the license for let's say for one book, so we understood that there were very big differences with Marvel and DC, but for example with IDW or Dark Horse, it works also like that. It's just for one series, for one book. It's not for the whole package. For example, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you were maybe just publishing the Tom Waltz series, but not the spin-offs or the other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic books.
So speaking about Teenage Mutant Turtles, there was, of course we bought the whole series, and it was actually really funny, because at that point when we write to, this idea that the whole ideas, they just swimming around us and could get into the mind of a different person at the same time. So when we came to Nickelodeon and this agents that used to work with them, and asking them to buy this Waltz run of Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, they told us yes, but you need to keep in mind that other guys, they just bought the original series by Laird and Eastman. Yeah, and that's funny. We launched it the same day with the other publisher, and it was always some kind of competition and friendship at the same time. So we did like the same week, the same day. We launched like our first issue, and they launched their first issue. But of course, because it's an agencies that also making not only comic books but toys licenses and whatever, they told us that okay, if you want to continue doing this, you need to buy some stuff at least for like several thousand euros, $7,000. And actually that was the reason why we dropped Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles at some point. I think it was 1 year before COVID. Because another agent came, Russian agent, and if the previous one was, at least they understood how complicated it is to publish comic books. And their next girls that came, they were totally not about comic books, only about selling, children books, toys, different stuff like advertising, branding for, like milk or water and whatever.
Okay.
And when they came, they told us, okay, if you want to continue publishing Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, you need to bring us an offer for, let's call it like 2 million rubles. And it's impossible to earn such big amount of money in comic books in Russia. And of course we told that, sorry. And they said like, okay, sorry. It's just an end of the thing. So yeah, but with the other image, I mean, of course we bought the whole series of Walking Dead, but usually I'm still very careful about buying stuff, and I'm usually trying to buy several books, then look at if it will works, then several books. So, and it means that it's always a risk that we could drop some series, but it's always the risk that if you're working with ongoing stuff, that Americans will drop some series. Like we used to be a publisher of Manhattan Projects or like Sex Criminals or whatever. For example, right now,
Sex Criminals was never finished in France. Yeah. We never got to the end. No, because Glenna published like maybe 3 or 4 volumes, and then they stopped, and so it's only halfway.
Yeah. So they did the series, same, like only 3. So, for example, right now we are publishing Last Man. Like Last Man's.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
No, Last Man. Yeah.
Yeah, and I bought only the first arc, like the first 6 volumes, to see if it will be possible for us to sell French manga to Russian audience, and it's like really, really, really hard. But looks like we're doing pretty well with this. We made a crowdfunding, and we sold 500. Boxes of 6 volumes in 3 books and whatever, and it's a huge success for French manga in Russia. So we will see, but that's how we're usually doing it. Buy several and then look at how it will work.
So it's the same between like American publishers and like Casterman who did the rights to Last Man.
Yeah. But as I told, right now, American publishers are not working with Russia anymore, starting from the war. And
so it was so it was in February 2022.
Yes.
So the next day, they just told you, or they stopped having contact with you?
So at some point, they stopped for having contact because, nobody.
Because they know that you are not responsible for the war.
Yes.
Especially as just comics publishers,
It's business.
Yeah.
I understand.
But and there are sections also for doing and I guess maybe that just doing business with Russia is prohibited. So
when that's all started, of course nobody just believed that it could happen, and we were sitting and waiting, like what will happen next. And whatever. So at first, a lot of publishers, they would just keep silent. But then they came back and told that, sorry guys, we just can't work with you anymore for a while. And of course, I have 2 points of view on this. But for the personal point of view, I think it's not really good, not really ethic, because we're still the same people, and not a lot of Russians actually really support this thing. But from the business point of view, like I understand that Disney don't want to have this respect loses and whatever how it's called. I don't know. At least most of them they told us that they're okay to let us print the books that we have in already signed contracts. That how, for example, like several of the books by Marvel, they appeared till the end of 2023 because we used to have them in the contract, and the contract is already signed. That's cool, actually. Thanks very much to Panini and to Marvel. But some of them, they even, we already paid for the contract, but they keep silence for a long time, and still telling. Sometimes because I'm traveling all around the book fairs and whatever, sometimes I told those people and said that, hey, hello, is there any good news? And they're like, sorry, it's not us, it's our directors, our bosses. I can understand this because like I have my boss too and whatever, but well, in the end it's really good. But we continue publishing. IDW came back to us, I think last year, and it was some kind of a miracle for us. We bought several books. Like right now, we're publishing Dark Spaces. Also, we what else? Some other books are in production too. Distillery, they agreed to be our like we are their publisher in Russia.
Partner publishing.
So Somna and qu'on are already published in Russia, and we're like super glad to do this.
Yeah.
Because that's actually one of the reasons why I'm still working for a Russian publisher, because as I told you, back in my childhood, there was a guy who decided to publish ElfQuest, and it's built all my, understanding of.
So you want to be that guy for another genre growing right now?
I mean, literally, the books that we are going to publish, because right now we are nearly the only one Russian publisher, not the only, there are a few, but still, who's still able to publish translated works. And I know that the books that we are going to publish, Russian readers will read them. And, if I will not publish those books that they could escape from this brutal reality, or to, maybe have some new ideas about what is going on and whatever. Because, for example, it's not mainstream book, but I think it's important books that we published. It's called The Journal of Istanbul by Russie Burlot.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this? So I'm really proud that I published it in Russia, because actually this book, it's not about Turkey.
Yeah.
It's mostly about, it's how I feel in Russia, because the whole book, it's about very straight and crazy conservative 80s, then about really terrible and dangerous 90s, and then about powerful leader that came to the power with the support of a nation, and then he's suddenly starting to make the community more conservative, and that's the same feeling I had in Russia. So when I read the book, I decided that I want to publish it in Russia, because actually it's about it. We have this anecdote. Yeah, that's international. That American and Russian have argues about the freedom of speech. And an American tell that, I could go on the main square of my capital city and tell that I hate American president. And, and the Russian said that, actually I could go to the main square of my capital city and yell that I hate American presidents too. So that's the thing. Like in Russia, you still could do the stuff if it's not about Russia. So that's why I'm publishing those books. Because if we will not do this, only propaganda will stay with our readers. And that's not what I wanted for my readers, with whom I already for 13 years.
Yeah, which brings me to another question, but maybe you just answered it. Like, are there any controls over what you're publishing?
So, of course, there is no official government control, something like this, but it's a lot of like a self-censorship right now, because that's how the whole thing in Russia works. We have a lot of really straight laws, and they, the way how they sound, it's really wide and uncertain. For example, we have this law that's called, it's illegal to make a drug propaganda, but what is propaganda? It's not clear. And at first, it was, for example, this anti-LGBT law, maybe you heard about this. So in Russia, it's illegal to make any propaganda of LGBT plus relationships. So, but there is no particular definition what it is. So basically, if you have like a gay person in any book, or it's just two girls kissing, if there will be, some crazy guy from the government in the bad mood, he could take this book, send it to the police, and then you will be in the huge trouble. And I'm telling you this because it's a real example. Back in 2019, we used to publish the book called Gennady the Pigeon. It was drawn by Ukrainian girl. Her nickname is Koro. And it was just a funny book about the pigeon misanthrope who hate people, you know, like with the jokes like every pigeons are shitting at the monument's heads, but only pigeon, the pigeon Gennady doing this because of political reasons or something like this. And in this comic book, there was a page, like a joke page, that actually pigeons looks the same in any genders. So sometimes shit happens. And then another pigeons, like this main character, Pigeon the Gennady, he came onto, you know, some white, really nice looking pigeon with a question like, how are you, baby? And then this baby, what is your name, baby? And then this pigeon called Dimon, which is Dmitry in Russia. And the last words of this comic book strip is that's why pigeon the Gennady the pigeon preferred to call himself like sapiosexual or, you know, like pansexual. Yeah. And so there is just a stupid joke, and it's about pigeons. It's not about people. But last year, some crazy woman writes some kind of a paper to some guy from the government that it's a propaganda of the gay relationships. And then they started to make some kind of research. It appears that this artist, she's Ukrainian, and she supports Ukrainian military. And there was a huge public resonance about this, and our publishing house was fined for like 9,000 euros or something like this just for this stupid joke. And that's why right now we prefer, you know, to self-censor.
Yeah, not to take any risk.
Yes. And that's a lot of new laws appears each month. So like the fresh ones was that actually drugs are prohibited in every way. So you couldn't even write, you know, you could even mention drugs. So that means all of the books by, I don't know, by Kerouac, by beatniks are prohibited right now. And for example, we published a book about Basquiat. And, you know, his life is really connected to drugs. And that means we have like 5 months to sell the whole printing, because at September, when they will finally sign this law project, it will be impossible to sell that book. Or even worse, right now we have another law called that in Russia it will be prohibited to make any child-free propaganda. And child-free propaganda, it also, for example, telling that it could be you could have some problems after pregnancy. That's make a lot of books, like pro-feminist books, illegal. And even we used to publish this book called Single Mothering by maybe you heard about this. That's was published by Nobro. So, and it's actually about how hard it is to raise children, raise a child when you're alone mother. And at some point, this book could be prohibited too, if it will get in the hand of the wrong person with the wrong mood and whatever. So that's how it works in Russia.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, if superhero comic books came back to us, it will be better because it's much straight, but still, you know, it's hard.
Yeah, it seems to be because I was just wondering, like, so what kind of books are there left if you are trying to not to speak about sex, about genders, about drug use, about and I guess maybe they could also, like, it's just another comic code authority that you've
something
got.
like this. And it's of course it happens not only with books but also with music, with
it's
with videos and with books and whatever. And that's funny because, like, even Scott Pilgrim right now is illegal in Russia because of LGBT propaganda, but there are some guys who find a way. They will publish it in Kazakhstan, which used to be a part of Soviet Union, and it's still like the one economical region, and a lot of I think it's 80% of people speaks Russian fluently in Kazakhstan, and a lot of Russian immigrants after the war that came to Kazakhstan. So they just launching the book publishing here. So we will see. And they don't have so crazy laws because they're trying to, be in the middle of this crazy conservative and like liberal type of thinking.
Okay. And so what about the publishing of Russian artists? How does it work?
I think it's mainly two ways, three different groups of Russian artists right now. Of course, it's indie underground guys with whom I'm really close to. There is 1.5 mainstream publisher, and there is also a huge thing that called influencers who suddenly started doing comic books. Do you have the same thing in France?
We have also comics from influencers, and actually one of the most sold manga in France last year was a manga done by an influencer.
Okay, is it okay?
I don't know. I haven't read it. I'm not interested in that because it was a shonen neketsu type manga. So I'm too old for this kind of mangas. Usually, I don't read any more many more shonen, but. I'm not interested in what this guy has to say. But it's great if that helps younger people to have their first manga reading, and if they were not reading before, it's perfect. It's just not for me. Maybe I would have loved it when I was a teenager. I don't know.
So, speaking of influencers, of course, those books sold the best. I think it's one of the very, very, very main bestseller of the Russian comic books. It's a children comic book made by influencer who is an animator, but he's a pretty good animator, I think. But the comic books, not really good. But he sold 270,000, something like this. It's the biggest print run of Russian artists in the whole history of Russian publishing, as I think. So, but he's like the only one, nearly the only one. And there's like a few Instagram artists who are like who have good sales too. But
this influencer, this animator, I guess he's with the Russian power, or is he doing something that's does he have freedom of speech in his book?
I think right now he's living in Italy, as I know. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's the thing about all of the people who are.
Yeah, okay. So they all live abroad.
Yeah. But anyway, he's not so. It's a children book.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not so full of.
But he could do a children book about just a boy can be a friend with another boy and even have
not
feelings
so
for
bad.
another
But actually,
boy.
like this particular book, it's a little have a little commentary about how politics works, and it have a small commentary about dictatorship, but in a very, do you know Cipollino? It's a Italian classic children book about the onion guy who fights the tomato lemon dictatorship.
Okay, no, I don't know.
It's beautiful, and it's very popular in Russia. It's by Gianni Rodari. Was my first fairy tale, and yeah. So it's some kind of this kind of story. Anyway, so let's go. So it's not so anti, Putin or whatever. So it's pretty okay. Then the next thing, the mainstream stuff. Oh no. The mainstream, it's more interesting for you, so I will start with the indie guys. Indie guys doesn't have so much sales, of course, but of course their comic books are like brilliant. The stories are amazing, and some of the girls that could be called like indie, they were even published in France.
Okay.
For example, there is a beautiful story by Olga Lavrentieva. It was published by Actes Sud and called Survillo. it's like Russian Mouse. It's a story, black and white, sad story about grandmother of this girl who remember revolution, then Stalin repressions, then the World War, the first, the second one, and the collapsing of Soviet Union. It's brilliant, even if I don't really agree with the point of views of this girl, because she used to be okay, whatever. We're not speaking about political views of other. And another girl, Yulia Nikitina, was published by. I'm really bad in French pronunciation. This imprint of humanoids, Le Boule, something like this. Do you understand what I'm telling about?
So it's Les Humanoïdes Associés.
Yeah, but their imprint called something started on B, something started on B.
I look for. I don't know.
Okay, whatever.
All the labels, but okay, it's at Les
So
Humanoïdes.
it's just a book about about how to live in the far north of Russia. So. They're pretty good. And one of actually my artists who used to work with me, she was published in one of the magazines of humanoids in
Metal Hurlant.
Yeah, Metal Hurlant. So she was published in number 8, I think, about anti-utopian. So with my help, of course. But still. And the last thing, but to be published, of course, we don't have so much of how you call it. Sorry, it's a lot of speaking in English for me for today. A lot of competition. Yeah. So there's no culture of, for example, presentation of your future comic book, sending to the publisher and whatever, It's just usually a thing of luck and of connections. But I trying to be in touch with all of these talented artists, so yeah. And we have 1.5 mainstream publishing houses. So the main one called Bubble Comics.
It's really funny, it's just really funny because the company that owns the website I'm writing on is called Bubble also. Bubble. Yeah.
It's a comic book,
sure. No, we're not original at all.
Yeah. The most of the publishing companies in where I was working have the beginning of com. Com info, com federation. Yeah. Anyway, so those guys, they are doing mainstream comic books in Russia starting from 2012, I think. So they have their main 4 characters. They used to have 4 characters, then they had 2 more. Then they make a relaunch like New 52, but by Russian, with Russian heroes. And, their most powerful character is Mayor Grom, who is a he's just a usual cop from St. Petersburg who fighting crime. And they even shot 3 movies that you could easily find on Netflix, I think, with subtitles or maybe even voiceovers in France. I'm not sure.
I look into Netflix, but Major Grom actually exists on Netflix.
And actually it's really interesting because it's not about Russia, but it's about, this image that Russian want to, people thinking about them. I mean, from the good point of view.
Yeah. Sure.
So, and it's more like the cop comedy action movie. It's better than most of the Marvel movies that appears last year and the year before, to tell you the truth. At least the first one. And as I know, they even published some of edition in English, because back in 2017, something like this, they used to run some of Boomstarter campaigns with their best, stories or whatever. And those guys are doing really good stuff. I mean, at start, they used to be collaborating with the government a little because there was money about the big holding, like the news holding and whatever. But, I'm this guy thinking that whatever money flew, if you're doing something good with it, why not? And this the guy Artyom, with both of this thing, he could spend this money, to girls or whatever, but he made the best team of artists and of script writers from Russia, and they made like really good action stories. And he have really very clear feeling of what is cool in comic books. But at the first time, he was running one series called Red Fury, and it was like full of sexploitation.
Okay.
But still, for example, they brought a lot of artists to Russia. This cultural exchange and whatever. And for example, Mateusz Santaloku, who we already remember after today's. Yeah. That's
Okay.
right. So he drew like some variant covers for the titles for some Comic-Con, and yeah, they have a lot of interesting stuff, and they raised a lot of good artists and good script writers. And right now they have their own festival, so they're doing pretty good.
So when you're doing the publishing of your indie artists, do you pay them like in advance for the realization of a book? How does it work? Really the publishing.
Okay, so when I came to this independent publishing in 2017, I started to pay to all of my artists advance for the first print. And I have several other publishers who came at my booth at the festival and told that, what are you doing? Why are you paying in our own, in our well, like in our pool? And I was like, what? And they're like, why are you paying artists? And I was like, but because they worth this
they
money.
work, yeah.
I mean, it's still not a lot of money because, for example, usual royalty in Russia, it's like 15% from the wholesale price of the book. And it's like not a lot at all. And the books are really cheap. And those guys and girls came and they told that, you don't need to pay. You could just give them the same amount, but in books. So they will sold their own books, and they will promote that, will be interested in promotion their books and whatever. So I guess that's how Russian book publishing of Russian artists works before I came. But a year after,
Okay, so let me just repeat. So you wouldn't pay your artist with money, but you would just give him the books. So he can just sell them by himself,
yes.
And then he'd get 100% on the sale of those books.
Yes.
Wow.
That's how it used to work
Okay.
before like 2017 at some of the publisher. I'm sure there was like the good publishers who were paying. I'm sure there was even some, publishers who paid a lot, maybe, who knows. Right now it's better, but it's still the, the price that artists get from their art, it's pretty small. I think, as I told, royalty rate is still like 10 till 15%. And for example, if you're ordering artwork, it could start from like 20 euros per page. And I think so some of the artists, of course, there is, world famous artists, because there are but there are some Russians who are popular and who draw comic books from abroad. It's like Artyom Trakhanov.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, you know him. Roman Surzhenko, Torgal. What else? Someone else. And of course they asking a lot for their pages, for their artworks, and they get these prizes, but usually it's around like 50 euros for a page, because if you paying more, that means the book will be just so expensive
no one will buy it afterwards.
So that's the thing, how it works right now.
Okay, and nowadays, is it hard to promote Russian books outside of Russia?
I think no one even trying to do this. Because
that's not what you're trying to do also while you're in Europe?
So I'm trying, but I mean, that's the thing that so I'm in this culture for like year and a half already. Yeah, I mean, living abroad and looking what is going on there and whatever. So, of course, I can feel it that a lot of publishers and a lot of people around, they're still a little bit afraid of working with Russians. And like, that's a good thing about Metro, for example, that they have Russia. Of course, most of those Russians are not living in Russia too, but they're still working with the Russian talents because our artists are very talented. I mean, at least the same talent level.
Yeah, but they work like others, and so they can do good stuff. Yeah,
much cheaper. But still. And also the thing that I saw, for example, in French culture, because you have some books about Russia.
Sure.
You have like Slava, this book that was published by Casterman, as I remember. You have like some other Mystery of Dyatlov Pass that was published by Lombard, as I remember, or Dargaud. Don't remember that.
It's the same big structure.
Yeah. So I mean, there is,
and we even got like from Delcourt a comic and a graphic novel about the rise of Putin, and and which calls him directly a dictator. So I guess that this kind of book you wouldn't be able to import it in Russia.
You wouldn't be able to import it in Russia. Maybe one day, but not now.
Yeah, not now.
Please remind me a little bit later about how sometimes time working at our side, but still, and I see that most of those books they shows Russia, but from the French point of view. Yeah, and of course I have Russia from the Russian point of view, which sometimes could be hard to understand by the foreign publishers and whatever. So when I just crossed the border at my 2022. After the military draft, I launched my own like website called Stepan.cool, whatever, because I decided it's a good name and it doesn't have any comic books related stuff.
No.
And I started some kind of an agency because I have like few artists, few books that I'm proud of.
I think you've got quite a network right now.
But somehow. There is some publishers who are interested in artworks, but not in the whole books, because I think, it's not the time. Of course, I have my own ideas, maybe to publish some of those books like an indie publisher or whatever, like a fanzine or whatever. But it will, cost me a lot of resources. I better need to understand what to, how to survive here. But speaking about time and Putin and all of this, so in Acte Sud, as I remember, there was
Acte Sud.
Excuse-moi, s'il vous plaît. So 15 years ago, they published the book called Master and Margaret. It's a comic book adaptation of the classical novel by Bulgakov. Maybe you've heard about this.
No, I'm such an illiterate in classic literature.
Okay, but it's a Russian writer who did really cool and mystic, thing about Jesus and devil in the Moscow of 30s, and cool. Not the 30s, but anyway. And the Russian artists who used to be comic book artists back even in Soviet Union, they made this adaptation and nobody needed it in Russia. So it was published in France first. And then, like 10 years after, it was finally reprinted in Russia by Boom-Kniga, by my friends. So for 10 years, this amazing job, this amazing work of adaptation of a Russian classical novel was not, was lying at some, market spaces and tables of comic book stores in France, and nobody needed it in Russia. But then suddenly, when finally comic book market starting to develop a little, they finally appears there. Or for example, Igor Baranko. Do you know this guy? He was published by Humanoids too, and his main work is Jihad, or the Horde. It's amazing thing. And he's Ukrainian. But the thing is that this book, it's about anti-utopical Russia. And it's very, very crazy and psychedelic. And it's really good advice if you will read it. It's amazing. And I think it was published like in late 90s, maybe early 2000s. But it has so much of prosperity about like the future of Russia. Actually, you will check it, and it's like so many things that happening right now. So, and this book was first time published in France too. And we published it in Russia only in 2017 or something like this. So that's the things that I'm telling to you. Even if right now it's impossible to publish some books in Russia because of those laws and whatever, all these dictatorships are good from one thing. They have its ending. So, yeah.
So it was like Igor Baranko.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Igor Baranko.
L'empereur océan at les humanoïdes associés. And so what's your plan? What's your plan right now? Do you intend? So you're still trying to publish books in Russia while living abroad. So do you plan on returning to Russia at some point, or are you just waiting for even the war to end, or for Putin to die? I don't know.
So the thing is, like, it's very complicated and personal question for me.
So you don't have to answer it.
It's It's interesting to think about it once again. Of course, during this 2 years of in exile, let's call it like this.
It's quite an exile for you.
I had a lot of different thoughts about this. At some point, I was like, okay, but all my relatives and friends are there. Maybe they need my support on this, from the inside. But then, I've been to Croatia or Serbia and saw that, that's how former empires looks like. I like better like this now. I wish something like this will happen, But then I came back to Russia again and see all my friends, not all, like 50% of my friends, because other 50% are all around the world right now, thinking that, it's not the same place I left, something like this. So what thoughts I have right now? Of course, I still overthinking and reflecting about the whole, Russian empire thing, because there was a lot of talents and a lot of good people in this country, but some of the very important, famous people like Dostoevsky, they were in trouble because of their points of view and whatever. Dostoevsky were really once nearly shooted, or for example the Bulgakovs that I told you. But in the same hand, there is other great people that were working for culture, even as a propagandist, as a Dostoevsky too. It's a good example, he was on the both sides, or like Tolstoy. Anyway, and but I like adventures, and I like to I like to do something interesting in my life and for the whole cultural, I was always about cultural exchange, not about Russia. I never thought I will be an immigrant or whatever. I thought I will just bring experience from all over the world and bring it to Russia. So actually, the minute I fell in love into comic books was in 2012, and I finally fell in love in the comic books. When I came to the album store, at that time when they have two layers, like the ground and underground thing. And when I first time came here, I already, read some Deadpool and whatever, but I was shocked how deep and interesting is the culture. And I decided that, I want to know everything about this, and I want to bring it to Russia as I could. So, and I really brought it. First, for example, my first books, when I became this independent publisher, we need to, so my task from my investors was to make books as cheap as is possible. So we decided to make small books, like small size books. And I just came to my bookshelf and look what I have here. And I found a book called Heroes on the Couch, like Heroes of FIBD on the Couch. It was just a souvenir, small fanzine that I bought in album store in 2012. That was made by Vendry Leroy, the French guy who is my friend right now. And 5 years after I visit Paris, I found this book and I decided to publish it. And I find a translator who already have some Russian translations online. And I write to Vendry and asking him if he want to be published in Russian. He agreed. And right now we are friends. So that's how it works. And I always thought that it will be like this. Right now I'm in exile. And I'm not like in real exile. I've been to Russia just for 2 months, and I came back only last week because, I have some problems, like personal problems with like relatives and friends and whatever. So I still could pretty, free comes and crossing the border. Of course, I need to have some interview, like where I've been for so long, how I earn money for such long trips, and to prove that I'm not a spy. I'm still working for a Russian publishing company to try to make its culture more interesting. Because, war will be over one day. And, and this, how call this? The side of the political system will change one day. I was born during the Soviet Union. Of course, I was 3 years old when it all collapsed. But, and during the Soviet Union, I was literally, holding by hands and, drinking milk from my mother's breast and whatever. Yeah. But yeah, and then it was pretty amazingly the time of liberty, the time of freedom, and Wild West in Russia of 90s. But then it came to this black and brown dictatorship again. And then, it's a circle. It could be changed again. So I can't tell you if I will come back or not. The only thing I want to do is to continue doing the thing that I'm really good at, comic books by publishing, by editing, by everything. Right now I'm taking also some script writing classes because I'm a little bit, I miss my creative stuff that I used to have back in Russia, because I used to play in the punk rock band. I used to sometimes draw really shitty strips just to be, some kind of an important guest in some collection or whatever, because I have good jokes. But still, and of course I miss it, so I started to slowly doing something. So yeah, maybe some of French publishers or American publishers will need such a interesting professional as me on their site. I'm always open for offers, because it's very interesting how comic book industry could work all around the world. As I told, I have friends in former Yugoslavia. And it's so interesting how it works here. Did you know?
No. I'm mainly focused on the French publishing system, which is also quite big and with a lot of differences between the size of the structures. But we don't know a lot about how it works in other countries, even those who are like Germany or even Spain. We don't know that much, and that's why also you're here.
So in Croatia, they have all volumes of Dylan Dog and Zagor. Okay, and I think the reason why Panini made this Flash crossover with Zagor and Dylan Dog crossover with Batman. Yeah. Have you heard about those things?
The Dylan Dog Batman, yeah.
Yeah. So actually it's the reason why it's so popular in Italy and in former Yugoslavia, in Croatia, in Serbia and whatever. And, they have like... When I came, all of French BD, they're published by amazing publishing house called FIBD, and it's some long series with a number like 200 something at the spine. I never thought anything like this ever. It was like 200 something, and it's a French bidet. So it's amazing how it could work in different. And for example, when I've been to Serbia,
but it's not like it's not the 2000. No, 200. It's not the 200 entries in the same series. It's
it's just every other series of the French classic, of a new French bidet, something like this.
Okay, yeah.
Or for example, when I came to Serbia, I suddenly discovered that one of the reasons why they have so interesting comic books in the past, it's Russian immigrants, because after the revolution happens, a lot of Russian talents, they immigrated to Turkey and to Serbia, then to Germany and to France. Maybe you heard about famous Russian taxi drivers in 30s? No? There were some. Anyway, and one of the main guys who were working in Belgrade in the comic book community were Russians, and his surname was Lobachev, and he made the comic book adaptation of a lot of Pushkin and Gogol novels. And it's a huge thing for the and as I heard, as I know, it was never published in France. So maybe
you could work at that.
Yeah, because it's like a very interesting artifact of history. But sorry, as usual, I just came to the another branch of our conversation. So yeah, so finish answer your question. We will see. Right now, I have my residence permit to live and work in France. I will try to do something. We will see as soon as as my my boss and my job is okay for me to working from abroad. I will try to work for Russian readers and Russian culture, because for me it's not about paying taxes to the Putin regime. No, he will get his taxes anyway by selling oil to the whole world. But for me, it's just to rise the cultural generation who will think twice before doing something bad, because we all live in the one world. Something like this.
All right, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to conclude the podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Stepan.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And I'll finish in French if you allow me.
Okay.
Donc, vous l'avez compris, c'est la fin de cette interview. Il y aura pas mal de liens dans la description pour aller juste vous renseigner sur les différents sites des maisons d'édition russes pour lesquelles Stepan travaille ou a travaillé. Et j'espère que vous avez appris plein de choses. Moi, c'était clairement le cas. Si le travail que l'on fournit avec ce podcast vous plaît, n'hésitez pas à le faire savoir. On a besoin de vos partages sur les réseaux sociaux et de vos retours sur notre site, sur nos réseaux, sur le Discord. N'hésitez pas aussi à nous soutenir sur notre Tipeee. Et en tout cas, merci à toutes et tous de nous avoir écoutés. Stepan, ciao.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.